at Swedish Space Corporation, he has put a lot of satellites in orbit. For example, just naming two, Viking and Freya. When you Google Space Nestor in English, and you Google Rymdnestor in Swedish, you both get the same name on top. Please welcome Sven and Grahn.
Thank you.
Vilken bättre röd? Vill du ha HDMI?
Ja.
Den här nyss.
Jag ska slarva bort någonstans.
Där.
Här ska vi se. Jag sätter aldrig rätt håll också. Det låter skit.
And Sven is going to tell us what the Chinese are up to.
Yep. Yeah, sort of a flippant title, but that's what I'm going to tell you about. There's been so much talk about Elon Musk and you know, the Americans and whatnot, so we'll talk about the Chinese people. But first I'd like to what's up? Okay, that's this stuff. What should I do? You move that? Let me see. It should be. Den ska jag. Va? Så här. Så ska jag. Bra, tack. Jag är expert. Tack då. I think that, I'm going to tell you that there's, in 1960, the 11th International Astronautical Congress was held here at KTH, up the hill there, and I was a 14-year-old volunteer. And I was operating the tape recorder at the talk by Hideo Itokawa, the father of Japanese astronautics and the founder of ISAS, Institute of Space and Astronautical Sciences. So I met the famous guy. So you certainly had the space program well before that, but it was slow. And the rockets he launched were called pencils. They were pencil-sized to start with, but they grew bigger. Anyway, so what are the Chinese up to? Well, let's start with rockets. The Chinese have developed carrier rockets based on their ICBM, the Dongfeng, the East Wind 5 rocket, which actually existed in two versions, by the way. So this is the rocket types that they started with, or still operating, and they're all run by hypergonics. Hypergonics are the kind of fuels that ignite on contact. And as I used to say that, one component is a nerve gas and the other is damn dangerous. So it's unsymmetrical dimethyl hydrazine and nitrogen tetroxide, and both are horrible. But they have the nice thing that they're storable at room temperature and they ignite on contact. So this is the family of Long March rockets that are still in operation, most of them. And these are built in Shanghai and these are in Beijing. It's like Gothenburg and Stockholm. And in the other competing cities. So, and this rocket is human-rated, the Long March 2F. And this one was the one on which the satellite Freya was launched, the one I was project manager for 5 years. Spent 51 days at the Chinese rocket base in the Gobi Desert. And most of these are in operation, but they are gradually being phased out. So these are the 4 rocket bases that China has. And this one on Hainan is a new site, and that's the key to the future plans. And the interesting thing is, when I worked at the Swedish Space Corporation at the end of the 80s, the Chinese Minister for Science and Technology visited Stockholm and our company. And in his company was the governor of Hainan. And that person already then talked about building a rocket base and an amusement park together, like the Kennedy Space Center and Disney World on Hainan. And now it's done. So these guys have a long-term plan. So anyway, I've been to these two. And so has Anna. Where are you, Anna? There you are. We've been there together to these two places. So Anna's, by the way, the head of the Swedish Space Agency, if you didn't know. So this is where the astronauts are launched and where we launched Freya from. This is the base where they launched stuff to the moon so far. And it's into geostationary orbit. It's in the Seatron program. So, of course, piloted spaceflight, I have to talk about that. So the Shenzhou spacecraft is, of course, the one they have been developing from, very much based on Russian technology. It looks very much like a Soyuz, but it's bigger. It's about 1.5 tons more massive. It's larger diameter. But it still takes only Crew 3. And it's launched by the Long March 2F. And it's split into the orbital module, the descent module, the one in the middle that comes back, and the service module. So it's classical. So this is, well, here it's launched from Juchuan in the Gobi Desert. And that's the first Chinese astronaut. One has to know his name. Yang Wei. Sort of Gagarin, anyway. It's a big rocket, 62 meters. And it has a standard Chinese diameter of 3.35 meters. They all come in that dimension. When we were in the Gobi Desert 26 years ago, the younger engineers spoke English. So we asked them, I hear rumors that you're going to launch astronauts. Yeah, we're going to build the launch pad over there. Then we asked the general, the head of the rocket base, and I have no idea about that. Anyway, they were still working on it. They were working on it already then, and just 7 years later, they launched the first unpiloted test flight of the Shenzhou. I marked the piloted ones here, and there are 11 flights stretching over 17 years. That's not much. It's a very slow but systematic approach, and they gradually increase the crew and the number and the duration in space, and then going through solo flights and then docking with various spacecraft. You can compare this pace with the Gemini program, the one that preceded Apollo, where they launched 10 flights in 20 months. I mean, that's an enormous difference in speed, but of course the Shenzhou program is a bit more ambitious, you might say. But still, it gives you an interesting view of it. So the first human flight was then made 15 years ago. So it takes a while to get around. Anyway, so there are two more spacecraft that have been launched, connected to human spaceflight. It's Tiangong, and I think it means the heavenly temple. Tian means sky, Han Tian, by the way, means spaceflight, travel in the sky. So Tiangong is an interim space lab, been launched twice. It's launched by the Long March 2F. It's slightly more heavy than the Shenzhou itself. And the latest one was launched in 2016, and there's been one crew there and one automatic resupply craft. And the automatic resupply craft is the Tianzhu, and that's going to be used for the bigger space station that's planned. So it is, it's based on the Tiangong. It weighs much more, and it's launched by a new rocket, the Long March 7. A new rocket. And it's launched from Wenchang, from the Hainan island. So this resupply craft was launched in April last year. It docked with the space lab Tiangong 2, and they made a fuel transfer demonstration. That's a key technology, to be able to transfer fuel. Who has been able to do that in the past? Somebody? Or the Russians? The only ones can do it. Anyway, so, and obviously the Chinese as well. The Americans still haven't mastered it. Here are the Tiangong and Tianzhu docked together. And they look the same. I had a hard time figuring out which was which. Does it really matter in this sketch? Anyway, it's a bit heavy. So now back to rockets. So the Chinese have decided to get rid of the old hydraulic, super dangerous, toxic, expensive, difficult to handle fuel, and move over to liquid oxygen and rocket propellant number 1, also called kerosene, RP1. And they're developing, this is just a few of the new rockets they're developing. Long March 5, 6, 7, 5, 6, and 7. And again, you get the Shanghai and Beijing division. So the itty-bitty one is a completely different system from these two, developed in Shanghai by a small group. Now, there's one organization called China Academy of Space Technology. Then there's another organization called Shanghai Academy of Space Technology. So it's a good old internal competition. So anyway, so this is Long March 5 is the biggest one they have at the moment, and it could put to geostationary transfer orbit 14 tons. And the Long March 7 could put in the lower Earth orbit 13.5, and the Long March 6 is the itty-bitty rocket. So anyway, the Long March 7 is an interesting rocket because it's going to replace the Long March 2F to be human-rated. And it launched the cargo vehicle, and it's going to appear in the reusable version, the Long March 8, to compete with Falcon 9 in the not too distant future. So the first stage of the recovery. So this one, the Long March 5, it will do lunar sample return, a Mars probe, and a space station core and experiment modules. First flight was fine. Second one ran into trouble. With some engine trouble. They're still sorting it out. So what are they going to use in the near term? What's going to happen? Well, it looks pretty big, you could say. You see the people here. So this is in Wenchang on the island. Now, next year, hopefully the Long March 5 will come back to flight status, and they will launch this contraption to the moon. It's a lander, a return stage, and a recoverable capsule to come back to Earth with the lunar samples. Doesn't this look awfully like lunar orbit rendezvous with Apollo? And not like the Russians did when they launched the return probe straight back to Earth. So they are rehearsing the lunar orbit rendezvous approach to exploring the moon as Apollo. Note also that this is a two-stage vehicle, so is the Apollo lunar lander. But the lunar landers that are going to be deployed from the gateway station around the moon has to be a single stage. It has to be reused. You can't leave something behind. By the way, they tested this return capsule in 2014. They flew it around the moon and back again. What does this picture remind you of? It reminds me of when they were trying to get pictures out of R2D2. Remember that? The sort of fiddling with this projection. It was the first thing I thought about when I saw this picture, is R2D2. And the shape of the capsule is just like that, doesn't it? Anyway, look out for this. On the 8th of December this year, there will be a lander with a rover launched to land on the far side of the moon. The relay satellite is already in place. It was launched in the spring, I think. Anyway, so let's move on to the big space station. In May this year, China issued through the United Nations this handbook on how to use the new space station. It's a user's manual with a lot of descriptions of all the standard equipment for microgravity research and medical research and whatnot, rack by rack by rack in the laboratory modules. It's amazing stuff, with lots of details about how it works. And it's put up by the China Manned Space Agency. So this is online. You can find it as a PDF file online. Read it. It's kind of fascinating. So this is the China Space Station. Tianhe is the core cabin module. It's going to weigh 22 tons. It's sort of like having 5 capability. And it's going to be launched by Long March 5B, hopefully in 2020. It will have an orbit altitude roughly as the ISS. The problem is that its inclination to the equator, the angle between the orbital plane and the equator is lower than the ISS. So you can't fly from one to the other, unfortunately, because ISS is at 51.6. And then you have the Tianju cargo ships. There will be 2 experiment modules, Wentian and Mengtian, and a free-flying telescope. Sort of a Chinese Hubble Space Telescope would fly next to the space station, and you could have a human attended. You fix things. Imagine that you had a Hubble Space Telescope flying next to the ISS. You could fix the gyro problem that occurred yesterday, for example. So this is new stuff. Assembly completed 2022. Maybe it's Elon Musk date, I don't know. So these are the numbers. And here's the artist's view of the space station. So this is the core module. These are the 2 lab modules. This is the cargo ship. Here are the 2 cruise ships. So that's the way it's going to look. Now you wonder, are these guys going to the moon? It appears so. This is a view graph of versions of something called the Long March 9. These were presented at a press conference at a university in Beijing on the 31st of May this year by a person called Long Hao. I'll explain later who he is. By the way, Long, I have his business card, and Long is the sign of the dragon, so it's Mr. Dragon that presented this, by the way. You can see it's a pretty big rocket. It's 93 meters long. It's a lift-off mass of 4,000 tons, and can put 140 tons into low Earth orbit. Here are the data for this rocket, so that's what I said, and they say it's going to be ready in 2030. Long Hao is a friend of ours, Anna. And look at this picture now. There is the designer of the China Saturn V. There's Anna, that's me. This is a meeting at the Swedish Space Corporation in 1991 where we were discussing interface things with their Long March 2 rocket for our satellite. So there he is. I mean, I thought he was a great guy with gray hair. Now, this is 26 years ago, he's still active, designing huge rockets. This is business card, by the way. So, I don't think these addresses and phone numbers are current, so don't call it. So anyway, that's my view of what are the Chinese up to. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Sven. Do we have any questions?
Yes, I was wondering, what is the Chinese attitude towards international cooperation, like the lunar village or the transfer over the drone and whatnot? Are they planning to be part of it?
Well, I mean, the attitude to international cooperation, I think, is the first example that they are open to that is this handbook they've given out. I was really surprised they did that. You would think that they would keep the cards close to the chest, but they just open up. So that's one sign. I don't think their plans for the Long March 9, the moon rocket, are firm enough for that. One thing that I've seen in the trade press is that the problem is finding a lathe that can machine a 10-meter diameter rings for the first stage structure. That's not so easy to manufacture, you know, aluminum or titanium pieces 10 meters in diameter. So that's the one thing they have to solve first. So I don't think they're ready to join that thing as yet, but they're talking about inviting, you know, people to their space station, which certainly will happen if you look at the way they're planning. So they are not. I haven't heard or seen them talking about this lunar gateway stuff. They have to get their stuff working. Obviously, they are developing things to land on the moon. This thing on the lunar far side is interesting. There are plans. We've seen plans of putting CubeSats, swarms of CubeSats in lunar orbit, putting up some kind of radio telescope on the lunar far side. So there are all sorts of talk like that. So we'll see. Maybe they will invite people to that. they have a problem with export license and technology transfer and stuff like that with Western countries. Still. That's easy.
You mentioned they made the leap from hydrogen to kerosene. Are they planning on building rockets using methane?
I haven't heard that. I think it's, you know, the advantage with methane is, of course, that the density is higher, which means that then of course, hydrogen. So which means that the structure ratio is much better. The structure is lighter. You don't have to make it so big. I think that is one of the reasons why people talk about methane. But then you have some of these smaller solid rockets are actually smaller launchers of solid rockets. And there's also private small launches developed by private Chinese companies who just launched recently. So I don't know, so maybe they will pick up the methane stuff, but so far I haven't heard. Maybe the upper stages, but there's somebody up there. If you shout loud enough, I can hear you.
My question was this: what the latitude of the launch stations, are they comparable to the latitude of the, like you mentioned, Kennedy space?
That's interesting. Well, see, Xichang, the base in the south they had before Wenchang, is at 28.5 north. Where is the Kennedy Space Center? At 28.5. And I think the idea was to be able to put communication satellites on their rockets for geostationary transport with exactly the same propulsion system, not changing a thing from a Western rocket, from an American rocket to a Chinese rocket. Pretty clever, I'd say. But the launch base at Yuchuan, in the Gobi Desert, it's at 41 north, 100 east. So that you could go to ISS if you want to, but there's range safety issues, of course, you don't want to fly into Mongolia and Russia and stuff. Maybe Japan is in the way as well. Maybe they could go from Wenchang, but they're not still talking about just staying at their 40, 42, or 41, 42, 43 degrees inclination. That is a problem. For some reason, they want to stick to that. Well, they get more payload, of course, into orbit. So you keep inclination.
We have time for one final question.
So who was the first to the moon?
I was waiting for that.
The Chinese or us?
Us. Well, if Christian can convince Anna to spend money on the trip to the moon, we'll beat the shit out of them, I'm sure. But I think this will work. No, but, I don't know. The Chinese going to get there, but if they get there first or not is up to anybody's guess. But they have a very slow and systematic and gradual approach, which means that you can rely on them actually reaching the goal, but the schedule is not anybody's guess. But when people ask me to talk, to make a guess, I always say the Chinese is to provoke people. But that's, I have no basis in reality for that. Yeah, I mean, pure, pull that in the air. Well, I think that everybody wants coffee now, is that true?
Yes, now it's time for coffee break, but you can find us at the upper door. And we do have